Hello everyone and welcome along to the latest edition of the TII podcast. My name is Craig Dennett and I'm your host this evening. I'm joined by Ross Chalmers and Gus. How are we doing, guys?
I don't really know what to say to that, Craig. It's one of those weird questions we've all been asking each other into the last 24 hours, how everyone is. I think we all know the answers to that. Yeah, I'm getting by. That's the best way to put it, innit? Yeah, not much more to say than that, to be honest.
Yeah, same here. I mean, I've slept on the result from yesterday, but my mood's still the same, I think. But I'm sure we'll get dived into it this hour.
Yeah, we definitely will. I actually considered starting this podcast with a 20-minute El Chiringuito tribute of 20 minutes of me just staring straight at the camera and then dramatic music in the background, but we couldn't quite get the music license in time. So unfortunately, you're stuck with our voices tonight as we pick through what was a bit of a shocking day for Rangers, both on and off the park. I think it's fair to say. Ross, I'll start with you. We're 30 odd hours on since you and Tommy broadcast the immediate post-match reaction from the gantry at Ibrox. You've had the chance to sleep on it. You've had a full day at work. How you feeling now?
Yeah, I mean, you've calmed down. Yeah, I think we were all emotional yesterday. I think
I'm not quite sure I've calmed down, to be fair.
Well, I've personally calmed down. I think it was one of the first games in a while where I have been emotional after a game, like really invested in it. And I think you felt that in the ground. I think everyone was the same yesterday. It was very toxic at full time, and I think everyone got caught up in it. And you could really understand why. The players doing the walk around the park, I think, made it even worse for people because it was kind of like, just the result's done, it's over, just get off the park, like let everyone go home and digest what's happened. So yeah, it was very raw yesterday. I think it's really hard to put into words what I think for Michael Beale going forward at this point. He's under immense pressure. I know we're going to get stuck into this as the podcast goes on, so I don't want to dive too deep in, but I really worry for him. I think there's a large section of the fan base now. I think we're getting to the vast majority of the fan base that do not believe in this manager. And I think that's a really, really difficult place to be in September. The first week of September, you're already starting to think that the guy you've got in charge, you've given him a full window of summer recruitment, isn't the right man to take you forward. It's really, really worrying times for us. I'll be honest. This podcast is going to be a wee bit of doom and gloom, unfortunately. So, yeah, look, I'm feeling better only because time's passed, but it's going to be a really sore couple of weeks, I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, hopefully it's a cathartic experience for all involved, us on the podcast and everyone listening. Please do drop some comments in. Let us know what you're thinking as we go along. We'll try and bring as many up on screen as we can. Gus, Ross mentioned there that we're in September and we're already all doom and gloom. We are actually only 4 week games into the season, which is hard to believe in itself. But are you similar to Ross in terms of you calm down a little bit and starting to look at it a bit more logically, I guess?
Maybe a wee bit, yeah. I mean, we do have to remember that we are only 4 league games in. Obviously, yesterday was a huge missed opportunity, and there wasn't many positives at all to take from it. I think it was more of a collective disappointment. I think not just like the manager's like tactical approach and the way he set up, but some of the individual performance yesterday were just unexcusable, and some of the decision making, some of the passes, there was so many overhit and underhit passes. Yeah, but yeah, it's hard, but I think we might after 4 league games, it is a tough one to call. So it is, I think.
Yeah, it really is a hard one to call. I'm just going to bring up some comments before we get stuck into some of the finer details of what happened yesterday. Scott Cameron says manager sadly a dead man walking after losing another big game against them with a baffling tactical approach. Talks too much and doesn't back up his chat with the team performances on the park. Craig Hart's feeling sorry for Ross, rolled out for another defeat. If Ross is ever on the podcast, you're always a bit wary about what's going to happen before that. Cubby Cubster says that he doesn't feel any better today. It's interesting. There's a full range of emotions in the comments there. Stephen Davidson comes in. We can't keep sacking managers. It's early doors, but a £6 million on the bench. Forget about VAR. We should be better than that. The formation and the team is wrong. We'll go on to talk about all of that. And let's start with the starting lineup, I guess. And Gus, I'll come to you first of all for your your thoughts on it. Rangers started Butland in goals, defensive back four of Tav, Goldson, Suter and Sterling. Midfield three of Ryan Jack, who I want to come on to very shortly, Raskin and Todd Cantwell, with Matondo, Dessers and Roof as the front three. What did you make of that starting lineup? I don't think that was everyone's choice, I think it's fair to say, but we have seen a lot of variation in the starting lineup since the season began. Michael Beale has liked to change who's in that starting 11 each game. I think I read somewhere it was eight of the first 9 games I've seen different front threes. So we know he likes to change it up. What did you make of that selection, Gus?
Well, I've got to be honest. At the time, I was completely fine with the lineup. I didn't have many qualms with it. But in hindsight, I don't think the team selection matched the tactical approach. I mean, we were playing Kemar Roof at right wing yesterday when we were playing a direct style, being patient, trying to fight for second balls, looking for balls over the top, and I don't think Kemar Roof matches that at all. And looking at the sort of balance of the team, we didn't have any left-footed players in there. Dujon Sterling, I thought he had an okay game, but yeah, there was no balance. The passes were always going inside, and there was nobody really trying to stretch the defence. But yeah, at the time, I think I was all right with the team selection.
Yeah, Ross, a couple of comments coming in already. Tunnock says Beale sending out a disorganised and unmotivated side is his signature move. And Aaron Hunter comes on to talk about, I guess, one of the main questions I had when the starting lineup was announced. Cantwell had a very quiet game, baffling that he was the man dropping in to cover Tav instead of Jack Raskin. Bonkers. I guess not specifically about that point that Aaron's made, but about Todd Cantwell in general and being part of that midfield three instead of the front three. Was that something that you picked out from the start and had some concerns about?
I'll be honest, I wasn't really concerned with Todd Cantwell in the midfield three. We've seen it quite a few times now. I'd probably argue we've not seen him at his best in the midfield three, but he's still effective in most games. So that part didn't really bother me to do with Todd Cantwell. I'll come back to him. The front three for me, I didn't like at all. I think that's the last 2 teams I've seen from Michael Beale, and I've not really bought into what he's trying to do. I totally agree with what Gus is saying there regarding Kemar Roof. You're playing the first half yesterday was, I think, pretty embarrassing from a Rangers point of view. You've got the whole Ibrox atmosphere behind you, right? And we've seen at the end of last season when the pressure was off, these players went out, they were very aggressive from the start, pressing high, putting Celtic under as much pressure as possible. We didn't see that at all yesterday. After the first 10 minutes, we sat deep and we let Celtic control the ball.
Sorry, I was going to say, for the first 10 minutes we did press them, and I thought if we keep going that way, that's how I expect us to play this game, and that's how I expect us to be able to win this game. But it's an issue I guess we've seen quite a lot so far this season under Michael Beale, in terms of we go flying out the traps first 5-10 minutes, we have a bit of a go, and then we just sit off for the rest of the first half. It's a bit a word that's been used many times in the comments already, but it is baffling.
It's baffling. We just look disjointed off the ball. I think out of possession, we're not a good team off the ball. We just don't look like we're aware and we're an understanding of when to press the opposition. It just always looks like one player will go, the other players really don't go with them. You seen yesterday the back line was quite deep in the first half. The forwards were trying to press at certain points. They've got no one behind them. You could feel the frustration in the crowd several times that Celtic were able to play through it. They were able to play out. There was no pressure. I think we've all heard a lot of people with their analysis. Cal McGregor had the freedom of that Ibrox pitch yesterday. And we don't like saying it, right? But Cal McGregor's a good footballer, okay? And one of the best things you can do to try and stop Celtic is try and stop Cal McGregor. So if you can cut off the passing lanes, you can get tight to him, whatever you need to do it. We didn't do that at all yesterday. We were all over the place when it came to that kind of front three, that kind of press. So tactically, I'm with Gus. I don't really understand the approach from Michael Beale. I've not really understood the approach the last few games, just all over the place for me. In terms of the actual selection, I might be going against the green here. I don't think Rabbi Matondo's done enough to be starting Old Firm games. I don't understand it. I think he's looked good off the bench, but that's really it. And if we're looking at Rabbi Matondo as being one of our better players at the moment, we're in real trouble here, like genuinely, because he's not really done a lot. Let's be honest here. He's still missed a lot of chances. He scored a great goal against PSV. The pass from Dessers is superb, but see, outside of that, there's not really a lot to hang on to. So yeah, that front three was baffling for me. If you're spending £5-6 million on a striker like Danilo, right? I understand maybe he's taking a wee bit of time to bed in. The last 2 or 3 games he's not played. This is the game he had to play. And in fact, I thought that was what Michael Beale was doing. I thought he was just trying to get him into this squad, give him a wee bit of time. Big game comes along, he's in. Well, he didn't play yesterday. And I know he looked good off the bench, but again, how much can you really do if you're not getting enough time? So yeah, overall, team lineup, Craig, I don't really have a clue. Not been happy with it the last couple of games, and I think that's shown in the results. I just don't really understand what the manager's trying to do.
I think your point about Rabbi Matondo is absolutely fair. I think we saw even a difference with Abdallah Sima when he came on compared to Rabbi Matondo and how much he did on the park. And Abdallah Sima's not set the header alight since he's been here, but he showed a real step change in the difference that he was able to make against what was probably the weakest back four Celtic have played at Ibrox for God knows how long. So, Gus, I'm keen. Ross kind of touched on how we set up and the fact that we were kind of half pressing, half not pressing. One of the things I noticed when we were at when I was at the game yesterday was that it appeared, and Ross mentioned Cal McGregor there as well, who we know is what makes Celtic tick. And if you stop Cal McGregor, you're largely going to stop a lot of Celtic's play through the midfield. Cyril Dessers was sitting on Cal McGregor for large parts of that first half, but he had to move forward to obviously press the centre halves. When they had the ball, we knew that Celtic centre halves were going to be a weakness within the game. So when Cyril Dessers moved onwards, moved forward up the pitch to press the centre halves, it was up to a midfielder, and I got the impression it was Nicholas Raskin that was supposed to move up onto Cal McGregor. The amount of times that Cyril Dessers turned round and Raskin was nowhere to be seen. We committed the cardinal sin, I guess, of the front line pressing and everyone else sitting back. And when you're caught in between with a press, that is just, it's hard to describe how bad that is for a professional football team to be caught in that. Is that what you saw, and is that how you kind of assess the situation?
No, it definitely is. And for most of the game, we sat off them and we were being patient, waiting for the right opening. But when we did decide to press, it looked a bit disjointed. And as you said, once the forward players were pressing, the defence and the midfield were too far back to look for the second balls. And I think even in the post-match presser, Michael Beale said that himself, that at half-time he told the players that the midfield and defence, that they were playing too deep. But by the time he changed that, the damage was already done. I mean, I saw an XG timeline graphic that the Rangers Review put up earlier, and before the Sam Lammers chance, which I'm sure we'll come on to later, that was in the 75th minute. Before that, we had created absolutely nothing at all. And in a home game in the Old Firm against a weakened Celtic defence, I think it's pretty much unexcusable for me. I was really confused with the tactical approach yesterday. I think in the first half, the damage was done, and barring the goal, the disallowed goal, we just didn't put them under enough pressure at all.
Craig, can I jump in there just in terms of that was obviously the out of possession stuff. See, in possession, if we actually became a team that just sits deep against Celtic at home and looks for long balls over the top, because that was all we done for 45 minutes yesterday. Yeah. Like, is that literally how many times has Michael Beale spoke about the type of Rangers team he wants to see? This is the type of, you're going to see aggressive football, high pressing, you're going to see a lot of fluidity. We didn't see any of that yesterday. It was how quickly can we hit Cyril Dessers, whether that's to his feet or high, or can we play it in behind and get second balls and runners? Is that really what we've came to? Is that how bad it's got? Because that was all I could see yesterday. And that is my concern, because I understand that it can take time for players to gel. I think we're running out of that now. In fact, that's probably gone, right? I know that's been the excuse leading up to this point. But I know it takes time for for a team to find their style right. But you would expect it to be improving game by game. But we've actually went right back. It looks like Michael Beale's reverted what he was doing completely yesterday, and he's felt we're not good enough to implement my style yet. So what we're going to do is we're going to set off Celtic completely, and we're just going to try and hit them with the break and hit them in behind. And it didn't work. And the fact that is the way we approach an Old Firm with a full Ibrox behind us. You don't use the intensity of the crowd to try and win the ball high, put Celtic under pressure. It's worrying times, honestly. It's really bad.
Yeah, we didn't even try and play that against PSV, so who knows why we tried that yesterday in that game. Ryan Stewart, you mentioned sort of Michael Beale's comments that he made. Obviously, the handbrake comment is one that will stick with him for a long time in terms of, I think it was during pre-season, he said he was going to allow the attacking players to take off the handbrake and almost move at free will. They couldn't look more restrained if they tried at this moment in time, and that's the real concern. We're not creating any good chances, like Gus mentioned earlier. We're not even looking threatening in the attacking third. And yes, I think it's 6 new attackers in total we've invested in over the summer period, and we're not seeing the returns at all from them, especially in the games that we need them to turn up in. Gus, I know you mentioned the goal there. Ross, will come to you first on it. I guess there were 2 goals to discuss. We scored after 40 seconds or something like that. I believe that was well offside. I've not seen that back. I didn't even make the extended highlights, so it must have been that far offside.
It was it was so far offside. Yeah.
And then the Cyril Dessers one has been a major Cyril Dessers instant, not a Cyril Dessers goal. The Cyril Dessers instant has been a major talking point ever since it happened. When I was in the stadium, I was surprised to see it disallowed. You kind of got, it's one of those weird ones, you got the feeling that it was probably going to be disallowed, but you didn't know why. But it was, in the stadium, it looked fine. When you first see it on TV, I guess it takes you back to the Alfredo Morelos disallowed goal against Dortmund and the reasons that were given for that, which I still don't agree with. I've never understood that to be a foul in football, albeit that it appears to be. There's been a lot of disagreement today amongst former referees. Seen the likes of Dermot Gallagher on Sky Sports News saying that it wasn't enough to be a clear and obvious error and it shouldn't have been overruled. The referee got it right first time. I think Steve Conroy, the former Scottish football referee, was another one, whereas Bobby Madden has come out and the other way and said that the VAR referee got it right. It's a difficult one to work out, but what was your view of the incident? Did you think it should have been allowed as a goal? How harsh is it?
In the stadium, probably like everyone else, I could not believe it. I genuinely, because where Dessers wins the ball was right in front of me yesterday, so it looked clean in terms of he didn't come through the back of Lagerbielke, as we've seen in the replay, right? Whether it's a foul or not, we'll get onto that, but he doesn't come through the back of him, he gets in front, right? So from my position, I thought that is just never, ever a foul. I've looked at it again today. It's a difficult one, right? Because I don't think it's a foul personally, but I can understand the argument where people are saying, well, it's in the rule book, right? But so I fundamentally disagree with the rule there. I don't see how that can be a foul. If you're restricting players from trying to get their body in the way of the ball, then I don't know where we're going, right? So that for me, I disagree with the rule, really. Can I understand why it's been pulled up because of that rule? Yes, right? I'll be honest. The VAR side of it, and this is something that I always have a debate with my friends around, right? It's the clear and obvious bit of VAR that really irritates me. I don't think that's a clear and obvious error by the referee. So I don't think Don Robertson's made a clear mistake. So for me, VAR should look at that. And I know fundamentally they're going to ask him to go over and have a look at it, but I always think at that stage it's very rare that they're going to not overturn it, right? Yeah. So I think they should have just been honest with them and said, look, there's not enough in this here. I think you should stick with your on-field decision. Again, we don't hear the conversations with VAR, which would be really good for us to hear. It'd be healthy, I think, for the game to hear these conversations. But that's where I lie on it. I can understand why it's been given as a foul. I don't think it should be. But the VAR side of it, in terms of being clear and obvious, it's not clear and obvious. Go with the on-field decision, right? The referee's made his judgment. Move on. That VAR is for, decisions in games that really, really, it's clear what the problem is. That wasn't for me. And I think Rangers should have been 1-0 up. Regardless of how poor they were in that game, I think they should have been 1-0 up.
Yeah, Gus, I have to agree with what Ross says in terms of it not being a clear and obvious error. I think if the referee spots it first time and says it's a foul, then I would say that doesn't get overruled either. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, it's like Ross said, it's not a foul for me. In my view, like the defender takes too long, and then Dessers gets in foot in front, and then in the same motion gets the ball and carries on, and then the defender actually kicks Dessers in the back of the leg. Now, like Ross said, the main issue I have with it is that I don't think it's a clear and obvious error from the referee. If that goal stands, I don't think anyone really has any issue with it. And the reaction of the Celtic players tells you all you need to know. I mean, you've got Callum McGregor doesn't make a claim at all. I think it's only Lagerbielke, the defender that made the movement, that actually complains to the referee. I think that's pretty telling. I mean, we didn't deserve anything from that game yesterday, but in my opinion, that goal should have stood.
Yeah, Gus, sticking with you, there's also been a wee bit of developments there today from the club, I guess. They've come out and said that they are bemused, was the word that they used, by the use of VAR in the game, and they have contacted the SFA to ask how that met the criteria of clear and obvious. It obviously doesn't make a difference. It doesn't change anything. We'll be lucky if we hear anything from the SFA about the reasons behind it. There's not much point in voicing that concern, is there?
No, I'm with you there. I don't think there's much point in it at all. It's done, it's happened, and we just need to get over it, I think. But writing to the SFA isn't going to do anything.
Yeah, Ross, it's not really seen anyone use that disallowed goal as an excuse for Rangers losing yesterday. Everyone's been looking at the level of performance that we had, almost looking internally to us as a team and what we did wrong, rather than to the external factors such as referee decisions, etc. Where did it go wrong? Was it just all over the pitch? Was it just everything that could have possibly went wrong, or is there some specific areas that you think that it really highlighted weaknesses in our game?
What a question that is, Craig. I could be here all night. Where did it go wrong? Well, I think the team selection was wrong, but that's just my opinion. I'm with Gus on that. Lots of people didn't have a problem with the team, so that's not necessarily saying that I'm right. It was just, for me personally, I wasn't pleased with the team. I didn't really understand it. I think for me, is Michael Beale, does he have enough behind him to set these Rangers teams up, or his Rangers team up at this point for these big games, right? Because I can come on here and like many others, I can talk about the tactical side of the game. I know Gus enjoys that side as well, right? And I could dive deep into it. But really, is there a mentality problem with this team? Because the big games now for Michael Beale, he's lost, right? And that is just the truth. So do we have a problem that our manager doesn't seem to be able to set this team up from a mentality standpoint to really go at this Celtic team? That was the best opportunity we've had in a long time against Celtic yesterday. I know we don't like saying it, but they were a very good team under Ange Postecoglou last year. Rodgers came in, they're having a lot of teething problems. And really, if you flip this round and we had won that game yesterday, Celtic fans would be having exactly the same conversations we're having now about our manager. They wouldn't feel he's the right man, right? So that is how tight it was. Why did we not go into that game with the aggressiveness that we needed to lay a marker, to make a stand to the start of the season? I just don't understand it. And I think it just sums up Beale's time in charge in terms of the big games so far. It was tentative. It wasn't willing to take the handbrake off. It wasn't willing to take a risk. I think the Ibrox crowd would have got more behind the team yesterday, right? If Rangers were relentlessly pressing them off the ball. And say Celtic did play through us and score, I think the crowd would get behind the team because they think, well, at least we're going for it. We're trying. We're maybe taking a wee bit of time to bed in, but we're going for it. We're trying to put as much pressure on this Celtic team as possible. We didn't get any of that. So I think the team set up from Michael Beale when it comes to mentality point of view, tactical point of view is not there. I think we're struggling from an individual point of view as well at the moment. I think you referenced Ryan Jack earlier. Probably one of the worst I've seen Ryan Jack yesterday. You can always kind of rely on him in these games. And I spoke about it on Thursday last week about the PSV away leg, that I wanted to see Ryan Jack and he had to play those games. Well, I mean, that's throwing it right in my face because I'm not sure where he was yesterday, to be honest with you.
Yeah, Ross, just on the Ryan Jack point, and it's been, I guess, been an issue that I've seen with Ryan Jack before in terms of, I think he slows the game down quite a lot. Nicholas Raskin has started doing it as well. It's almost like we're coaching players to not play the ball quickly. But Ryan Jack, in possession and out of possession, had a horrible game yesterday. Can you pinpoint why you think that is? Was that a positioning thing, or was it just a personal, he had a shocker and that's what happened?
I don't really understand how Michael Beale uses Ryan Jack. For me, I don't think Ryan Jack has the passing range you would maybe want from a deep line midfielder, that kind of Stephen Davis role, right? But I think he's better in that position than being one forward. And I think yesterday he was kind of using Raskin and Jack in like a double, but he was letting Jack go on the left-hand side at points. I just don't think he has the legs or the skill set to play that position anymore. And I just think, not to come away from Ryan Jack too much, right? But I think that's just all over the park at the moment. Michael Beale is playing players in roles that they're not suited to. And he's also doing that every single game with multiple players. And then if it doesn't work one game, he's moving the player again. So he's tinkering way too much. He's changing his 11 every single game. The only stability we've got is in defence, right? And I know you'll always hear that cliche that a great team is built on a solid defence. Listen, I get it, right? I probably agree with it. But you also need a wee bit of stability in your midfield. And you definitely need it in our forward line, because I think you referenced this at the beginning of the podcast, Craig. Did you say it's 9 different combinations of front three now?
8 combinations in the first 9 games.
Well, there you go. So that's a manager that's recruited his players, because he doesn't have the protection of Ross Wilson anymore. We can get into who buys players and whatever. I've been on the podcast ranting about that before, right? I don't think it's necessarily as simple as the manager buys all the players, but he doesn't have that protection there anymore, that there's a director of football dealing with things. So he's brought in these players, and you're telling me he doesn't have the confidence in guys like Sam Lammers or Danilo to play in these big games, play in the Old Firm. I don't really know what to say at this point. So yeah, I could rant all night here, Craig. I think every Rangers fan is the same. I can see lots of people in the comments with various different opinions. I think there's a lot going wrong at the moment when it comes to that first team. We just don't seem to have any cohesiveness amongst anyone. It's just we're struggling big time.
Yeah, Gus, Ryan Stewart says square pegs and round holes all over the pitch. Beale seems to have already abandoned his plan from pre-season. That's one of the major things I think that we're seeing. One, he's playing players out of position, or where their natural position is, to try and fit around other players. Ryan Stewart says Beale seems to have already abandoned his plan from pre-season. I think one of the major problems is we're not seeing a plan, or we're not seeing the development of a plan, or we're not seeing the team moves. Even if they were moving slowly towards something that we saw what the end goal was going to be, that would give us some encouragement. But it just doesn't seem to be a plan there. Is that the impression you're getting?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, the comment there talks about the plan from pre-season. What was the plan in pre-season? I don't know. But that's the main problem for me with Michael Beale this season, and why I don't think we're doing as well, is like he's prided his team selection and the players he's brought in and his tactical approach and his formations on being unpredictable and being able to vary his approach. But we've got no distinct style of play to be unpredictable from, which I find really confusing. You know, we played 4-3-3 yesterday. We played 4-4-2 against PSV in the week. We sometimes play with a midfield diamond. We sometimes play with 2 number 10s behind the striker. It needs to stick to one of them and gel these players into these roles so that they can form relationships and, you know, and really start to gel. I think that is one of the main reasons why the new signings haven't bedded in as quickly. And even players like Todd Cantwell, who's been shoehorned between 2 different roles in the midfield 3 and in the forward line. We need some consistency in the team selection, and that's probably the main thing for me about Michael Beale and why we're not doing as well this season.
Yeah, Gus, you asked the question, what was the plan in pre-season? Ryan Stewart's came back again. He says the plan was obviously to play Lammers, Dessers and Danilo together. That's been abandoned already, and Matondo has come back from nowhere. I think that everyone would probably suggest that's probably what they thought from pre-season would be our strongest front three. I think the question is now around Dessers and Danilo and who plays that central striker role. I actually thought Cyril Dessers did okay yesterday in the game. I don't think he was as bad as people were making out. I definitely didn't think he deserved to be, and we'll come on to the fact he was kind of, people were cheering when he was taken off as a sub. I didn't think he deserved that for the performance he put in yesterday. I just think that he wasn't necessarily the best suited player for that game, and the style of play that we seem to want to have in terms of pressing their centre halves high. That's where you need the pace of our £6 million Brazilian striker to really do that. But I think it's really interesting that we've not really seen that front three much at all. Gus, do you think that's a front three that we will start to see more of? Should Michael Beale start to settle down on who his starting front three are?
I definitely think Dessers and Danilo playing together is something that he wanted to bring in from the start. I think that is something we'll see more of. I do think it does lack a bit of pace though, that front three, if you include Lammers in there as well. So I think we're going to see the likes of Sima and Matondo, I think, instead. But I think his plan probably was originally to play Dessers and Danilo together, and that's ultimately why he spent all the money on them.
Yeah, I think so. And there's plenty in the comments saying that Kamar Roof is our best forward. I definitely think he's our best finisher. We've not seen enough of Danilo, I guess, to really know one way or another. He got in some good positions. He continues to get in some good positions, but he's been getting the last 20 or 30 minutes of games, so it's hard to judge him solely on that. Ross, one of the things when Michael Beale came in was that we knew he liked to adjust his game plan depending on what the opposition did, and at the time when he came in, we reaped the benefits of that as we went on that long winning run. But it seems to be the big games that he really struggles, and he almost tries to take on the underdog tag in every single big game we play, and tries to play teams on the counter attack, and that's especially disappointing when there's games like yesterday's where we really should be on the front foot, and we need to have confidence in ourselves that we are a good football team, and we can impose our style on a game. Is it as simple as that to say that's where we're struggling, or is it much more complicated, do you think?
It's a tough question. It's a good question.
I don't know. Tough questions are right.
I think I said this earlier. I think overall the squad and Michael Beale are pretty tentative in these big games. They're not really willing to open up and have a go. I think the League Cup final we seen last year, that was the big frustration coming out of that game. We were poor the first 70, not willing to really have a go at Celtic. I think we went 2-0 down and he made the changes.
Yeah.
I think, and you've seen a bit of a response, but ultimately it's too late. What fans want to see is that from the start of the game. I think you could see it in the players yesterday after 10 minutes. I know we've spoke about how they started pretty well and things like that, but they set into their kind of common way of sitting deep, trying to keep compact, which I don't really think we have the players to do that, if I'm honest with you. We have quite aggressive front foot players, but we're playing them in a style that's compact. Again, doesn't really make sense. But I think you could see the anxiety on the ball yesterday. Everything was rushed. Everything was trying to move it forward as quickly as possible. Well, look, you can play football in different ways. There's not one way. There's not one tactical system that every team should play to. I get it. But ours seemed a wee bit too simplistic for me yesterday. And it just seemed like a manager that wasn't confident in his approach and his philosophy that he's trying to implement for that game. I don't think he believed he had enough to beat Brendan Rodgers' Celtic yesterday. But that is really concerning because he's been here long enough now. And I know it's a different manager. I get it. I understand that, he's maybe prepared, I don't know, early on this season or the late end of last season about an Ange Postecoglou team, how he's going to get better of them. But it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really fly with the fans. Ultimately, he's got to sit down. He's got to look at a Brendan Rodgers team and how can I get the best of them? And how can I impose my Rangers team? How can I get the best from my Rangers team? The players I've recruited, what do I want to see? What's the style? I want to be aggressive. I want to press high. Everything he's been taught. We're not making this up, right? It's not like we think this is what Michael Beale wants to do. He's spoken about this.
Yeah.
So the fact that we're not seeing any of this makes it even worse. And I think everyone talks about this all the time. He does speak too much. He says too much. He gives too much away. Everyone holds him to it. And this is why he's getting so much criticism now, because he's contradicting himself. And he's contradicting himself in the pitch. So, yeah, I think we have a real problem at the moment tactically with Michael Beale. He's really going to have to sort it in the next couple of weeks. I'll be honest with you. I think he needs to ditch this whole two-striker thing. It's not working. It's quite clear it's not working. If that means one of Dessers or Danilo needs to sit on the bench every week, I'm sorry, they need to sit on the bench. And you'll have to have a look at it next summer in terms of recruitment. Did we do it properly? And he'll have to sit and analyse that with the board. But this two-striker approach, ban it. Honestly. It's not working. And if he keeps going with it, he will lose his job. Simple as that. Because there's been enough now for us to see this style that he's trying to play. And he's not getting any results from it. Or he may be getting results, but he's not getting performances, right? And we always say this about football. It can only take you so far. You know, you need the performances for the longevity. And he's not got that right now. So, yeah, like I said, bin the two strikers, go back to a 4-3-3 or the narrow 10s, put Cantwell on the last line, and just pick a team and stick with it for a couple of weeks, because everyone's sick of the tinkering now. Don't want to see it anymore.
Yeah, Gus, Ross spoke there a wee bit earlier before he went on his big rant about he spoke about the fact that we expected Rangers to impose their style on Celtic yesterday, and we expected, given especially that Celtic had a significantly weakened team, we expected Rangers to go there and take control of that game. Kyle1872 says, I can't understand why we just don't adopt the high press, in your face aggression, and do everything quick. We seem to do that for 10 minutes, as we suggested. The real thing that frustrates me though is that we slow the game down a lot as a team, especially when the ball gets into our midfield. It was especially noticeable yesterday and between Ryan Jack and Nicholas Raskin, in terms of they'd get the ball in midfield and they would almost turn back the way they came rather than turning out and moving forward or moving it wide to the opposite channel. Ryan Jack has a horrendous habit. I'm going to call it a horrendous habit. He's got a horrendous habit of picking up the ball, making the turn to go wide to the opposite channel, but then turning straight back into where there's about 10 other players standing and the ball just came from, and he passes it straight back to the person that gave it to him. Why do you think we've not adopted that style that Kyle1872 has mentioned? Because to me that seems the obvious one that we should have the players to be able to adapt and adopt.
No, I'm completely with you on that. I really don't know, and I always go back to the game we beat them 3-0 at Ibrox. Yes, it was a dead rubber game, but we pressed them high from the very first minute. We're in their face the full game. We got the early goal that got the crowd up, and that should be the blueprint for how to play against them. I don't know why yesterday adopted the style of being patient and sitting off them, because we played so well in that 3-0 game. We stifled them. Yes, they probably went up for it as much as they would be if the league was still on, but for me, that should have been the blueprint for how to play against them.
Yeah, I've thought for years that should be the blueprint. Ever since Steven Gerrard found a winning way against them, it's always been the way to break them down, and they did become a better team under Ange Postecoglou, but we still, the way we were finding success against them, the way that we were scoring goals against them was by playing that way. So I don't understand why we're overthinking it as a management team, as a coaching team. We're overthinking it every single time. If you play that way, put them under pressure, stick someone on Kyle McGregor, and you're in with a fighting chance. If not dominating the game, and that's a real problem. Ross, looking now to the decisive moment of the game just before half time, Celtic go 1-0 up through Kyogo. It's masters of our own downfall yet again, I think it's fair to say. Connor Goldson, Joe Hart takes a goal kick, 50 seconds left of stoppage time before half time. It lands right on Connor Goldson's head, and instead of just heading it back where it came from, he tries to be smart and head it out wide to a Rangers player. He gets it completely wrong. Matt O'Reilly, I think it was, jumps up and intercepts it. Headers the ball over the top of Connor Goldson, where Kyogo is standing, being played onside by John Souttar, and he absolutely lashes one past Jack Butland into the bottom corner. It was a very good finish. I don't think we can take anything away from that. And I think it was a sign of the difference between us and them is that they have a clinical striker that can take the one chance that comes his way. But defensively, that was yet another horror show from ourselves.
Yeah, I'm not really sure why Connor Goldson decided to take a risk there at that stage of the game. Just, the players will have been aware that they weren't playing particularly well and they weren't imposing themselves, and Celtic were the better team, right? So just get to half-time, just see it through. If that header needs to go straight back, play it straight back. Just don't take any risks at that point. I think John Souttar switched off and he's played Kyogo onside. Now, we've seen quite a few of these recently from John Souttar. We have to be honest. I think we've all been impressed with John Souttar over the start of the season, pre-season, things like that. He's done well. But he does have it looks like he might have a wee bit of a concentration issue. He just seems to switch off at various times, and we've lost quite a few goals from it. So that's something that needs to be addressed. I think that comes back to recruitment. I'm sure a lot of people will say we were absolutely screaming out for our left centre-back. I mean, things like that happening yesterday that doesn't make that argument go away, unfortunately. So, yeah, look, it's a really poor goal to lose. I'll be honest with you as well. When I seen it in the stadium, you just have to hold your hands up sometimes. It's a great finish. And Kyogo is a clinical striker. And he will take these chances when they're presented to him. So I think he might have missed a pretty good chance yesterday. But you know what I mean? His goal return speaks for itself, especially in this fixture. So you're trying to minimise the chances he gets. So to gift a goal at that it's pretty unforgivable. But we've seen it. This Rangers team have done it. It's not like the last couple of years. It's this season. We've seen it numerous times from this Rangers team this season. Just switching off defensively, not concentrating when it matters. Crucial points of the game. That is a crucial point of the game. That halftime team talk is very different from Michael Beale. It's also very different from Brendan Rodgers because he knows he's got to go back out for another half, 45 minutes, an intense atmosphere, the crowd behind us that could have pushed us on. It's a great time for them to score, and it's a horrendous time for us to concede. So, yeah, all round, really, really poor goal again, Craig. And to be honest with you, I'm really getting sick of saying that now.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm getting sick of asking people questions about it as well. So, Gus, just sticking on the goal that was conceded, though, Ross highlighted John Souttar's role in that one. I actually like a lot of the attributes John Souttar has. I think I especially like, apart from once yesterday, but I especially like the way he drives forward with the ball out of defence, and he's willing to take it forward. But it's all well and good playing really well 99% of the time, but when that 1% each week is being at fault for a goal, and it's several goals now so far this season, and we're only 9 games in, that John Souttar can be culpable for. It's a worrying trend, isn't it?
It is, yeah, and I don't think he had a particularly good game yesterday at all. You mentioned that one moment where he tried to take the ball out of defence and he did too much, and then that's when Kyogo got played through, and then Connor Goldson had to stop the ball in the line. But for the goal, he just switches off for that split second, and in Old Firms you can't do that because you will get punished, because it is a quality strike, and then that one moment of quality ultimately decided the game. But yeah, I do like John Souttar. I'm a big fan of him, but yesterday he didn't have the best of games at all.
Yeah, Gus, just sticking with you, what do you make of this from Aaron Larg, who says it was 100% Goldson's fault? Blaming Souttar for that is ridiculous. I think it was a combined effort, is what we're saying.
Yeah.
I don't think we're blaming one or the other. It's a combined effort at being terrible.
Yeah, pretty much. Between both of them were at fault. Goldson should be a bit smarter and just clear the ball. Instead, he tries to be too clever and try and retain possession. But yeah, we're not saying that it's mainly on Souttar. I would say it's definitely on both of them as a collective.
Yeah, I think so. Right, Ross, you mentioned the halftime team talks. The game almost changed at half-time, Celtic decided to sit back and try and defend their 1-goal lead and play us on the counter-attack. We did a lot of huffing and puffing without much cut-through for a lot of the second half. I felt like we were in control of the game in the second half the way I expected us to be in the first half. We were playing the ball a lot quicker. There was a lot of tension coming from the stands, I think it's fair to say, even in the early stages of that second half. I think mainly because we could see how bad Celtic were as a team, and we fully expected Rangers to be able to dominate that. We did dominate the second half, but we didn't really create a great deal of chances. It was a combination of sloppy passing, the team looking disjointed, and then there's poor finishing, which you can come on to as well. But surely, you mentioned a bit earlier as well about the team gelling. Surely the team should have gelled by now, and we shouldn't be seeing these kind of issues, especially going forward in the attacking third where it matters so much.
I couldn't agree more. I think we should definitely be more effective in the final third than we look at the moment. I think you've used the phrase there, huffing and puffing. It certainly was that in the second half. We really lacked quality. That was it, to be honest with you. There was no cutting edge. The guy that you're really looking for to make a difference in these moments, Todd Cantwell, was just being played in a role that just didn't suit him yesterday. He was playing on the right side of a 3. And look, Celtic obviously recognises a good player, so they were pressing him relentlessly, and he just didn't get any space and time to be able to really pick his head up. He started doing what I've seen a few times with Todd Cantwell. He starts trying to be a bit too hard. He's trying to beat men repeatedly. He's trying to... And look, there's a side of that I really like, because at least he's trying to grab the game, but could we have done a wee bit more to free him up? Probably. You said something there for your question, Craig, and you said you felt we were in control of the game. I disagree. I think Celtic were in control of that game yesterday. I think Celtic were willing to give us the ball in that second half because they knew we wouldn't do anything with it. Honestly, that's the way I was watching that game. I felt they've just surrendered possession because they know we're going to create chances on the break and we can kill this game. And let's be honest, they should have killed the game. They had several chances through on goal that they just didn't pick their head up and they didn't play the right pass, and they could have killed the game. And that was with they were bringing a lot of new players on as well. So it wasn't like they were bringing experienced players on for this fixture. They were bringing new players into the environment, and they were breaking on us. And really, if they had a wee bit more of a killer instinct, and to be honest with you, if it's a Postecoglou team yesterday, they would have finished us. It would have been 2 or 3. I just have to be honest. That's just my honest assessment of it. So I felt, even though we had more of the ball, I think Celtic were comfortable for us to have the ball, and I think that's worrying as well, because they obviously seen enough from us in the first half that we weren't really going to do enough in possession. And even with substitutions, they didn't really change their approach. They just felt, we'll just let them have the ball and see if they can break us down. I know we created a few chances in the second half, but ultimately it wasn't enough. Gus brought it up earlier in terms of the chances we created up until that Lammers chance, which I'm sure they'll come on to. He has to score. We created really nothing. So, yeah, I really don't enjoy saying this, but yeah, I just felt we were second best yesterday. I don't even think Celtic were that good, to be honest with you. I really don't.
They weren't. I disagree. I disagree with you to an extent around Celtic being in control. I think they tried to do what you said that they tried to do in terms of surrender possession to us and then break on the counter attack. I don't think that they wanted us to have the volume or to win the ball back as easily as we did, as high up the pitch. And that's probably where I disagree in terms of them being in control. But they were breaking on us. They hit the hits in the counter attack 3 or 4 times in that second half, and should have scored at least 2 of them in that stage. Gus, what did you think of the second half performance? Do you agree it was a lot of huffing and puffing without any end product?
Yeah, I mean, by the time he raised the defensive line in the second half and we actually went for it, we did play a lot better and we did create some chances. Like obviously the Lammers chance, and Danilo had a couple of chances when he came on. I thought he was really bright when he came on. But yeah, you were speaking about control there. I do actually agree. I think Celtic were probably in control for most of the game in spells. We really struggled to play through them at all and ended up just going long a lot of the time. But second half was better, but still, by the time we went for it, it was too little, too late.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Right, let's come on to, I guess, the Sam Lammers chance. Was, I think, our best time. We need to discuss it because the amount of abuse Fashion Sakala got for two very similar chances last season, and yeah, I was going to say so. I was going to say if Fashion Sakala was here, we might have been in a better position, but let's not go that far. Ross, let's talk. I think it was Tavernier into Nicholas Raskin. Nicholas Raskin's looking as if he's going to play it out wide left. He kind of reverses it through the lines. It was a great pass, a great first touch from Sam Lammers. He opens up his body, and he either needs to hit it. He needs to hit it to his left or Joe Hart's right, either top or bottom corner. Take your choice, but you need to hit it as soon as you open up your body. Instead, he tries to take the ball past Joe Hart, and I've seen the still image. I don't know who it was in TII that posted it on Twitter yesterday to be perhaps a bit mischievous, but he was off balance as soon as he tried to go around Joe Hart, and the angle was a lot tighter in real life than it looks in that still image. But he needs to, whatever he does, whatever his decision making is, he needs to find the back of the net with a chance like that, doesn't he?
Yeah, for me, does that come down to Sam Lammers' confidence? Because I think you've spoken about it there when he gets through and he opens up his body. Instead of trying to round Joe Hart, he's just got to try and slot it in a corner. But instead, he rounds the goalkeeper. Now, there's skill in that in itself. You know, when so many bodies are around you, Joe Hart's charging out. It's not easy to round a goalkeeper like that. And really, I just felt sorry for him after that because he's done a lot of the hard work, but he's just got to get his foot round the ball. And he's just got to put that in the back of the net. We've seen it. You referenced it in your question there with Sakala. We've seen it twice last season with Sakala where he doesn't get his foot around the ball and he hits the side net. And how many times are we going to see this in big games where we miss big chances? And this seems to be the big difference between the teams at the moment. I think we can all be honest and say, last season Celtic were better than us, right? But in the fixtures between the two teams, the differences between the team was they were clinical. They took their chances when they came around. We've seen that in several games where we seem to be the better team. We were creating decent chances and Celtic would get a couple of chances and they'd go ahead. So that seems to be where we're really, really struggling at the moment. Sam Lammers, just from his perspective, he looks to be a player to me that is really struggling with his confidence.
Yeah.
And the thing that I always think about with a player, as you can see it straight away, is his first touch. Now, his first touch in pre-season was unbelievable. He looked such a great technical footballer in pre-season. See, when the season started, I'd done it again yesterday. He's first on the balls. I think it was thrown to him. The ball just rebounds off him into the centre of the park. And I always think that's one of the signs of a player's confidence being gone because they simply are thinking about it too much. The basics are gone. You know, he's a professional footballer, a highly skilled technical footballer, right? And the basics have completely gone for him. And I think that summed it up with that chance. It's a terrible chance to miss. But I think you're right. I think he's just got to try and find the corner as soon as he opens his body up. It was a really nice ball from Raskin. It should have been a goal. Again, we can get back into it. Would we have deserved it? I'm not sure. But at the end of the day, when you get a chance like that, you've got to be clinical. You've got to grab the moment. And again, we didn't.
I wonder how much of that comes down to the fact, though, that he's not been starting every single game recently.
I think that's a good point.
And he's not had that. I know everyone knows, even from playing amateur football, that if you get a run of games, you're more confident in your first touch, you're more confident in your decision making, you're more confident in the passes that you can play. If you're a professional footballer and you're playing, and I guess this week was two of the most competitive games we're going to have this season. And if you're coming in and playing 10, 15 minutes of these kind of games, it's difficult to get up to speed and it's difficult to make sure that your decision making is on point and your touch is on point. Now, he is a professional footballer. It is his only job. It's what he's paid to do. So it's and that I see you laughing there as well. That's a bit harsh, but it's just the truth. It's the same when strikers are literally paid to score goals. So when a professional football striker cannot hit the target, you have to question what they're doing. I realise I've oversimplified that a lot there.
Is he? Can I ask you then, Craig? Is he one of these players that you think that after the international break, Michael Beale just needs to stick with? Is he one of these players? Obviously, he's brought him in. It's his player. Is he one of the guys that he needs to fit in that team one way or another, and he just needs to give him a run? Because I know it's pre-season, it's non-competitive football, right? I get it. But clearly there is a player there, right? We've seen it. Is he one of the guys, just like Danilo, I think? Does he just need to put him in and he needs to let it go? He needs to just give these guys time to gel. He needs to give them 70, 80 minutes of a game and give them time.
I think so. I think both those players you mentioned, he needs to play them and he needs to give them game time. I think Sam Lammers, in my opinion, was actually probably to kind of do what Malik Tillman did for us last year in terms of breaking down that low block and have that quick feet around the edge of the box. And that's not necessarily what you need against a PSV or what you need against Celtic. That's what you need at home to Motherwell and at home to Ross County and games like that. And I think that's where you'll see Sam Lammers always play. But I think you need to give these guys game time. You need to give them the confidence to work together and get to know each other's movements, etc. Gus, where do you see? You can discuss Sam Lammers' chance if you wish, but in terms of his overall role within the team, where do you see that, and do you think he should get a run of games?
I think that would build up his confidence, definitely. In terms of his role in the actual squad, I do agree that he's probably taken Malik Tillman's place. You know, he can play as the main striker. He can play a bit deeper, a bit like Malik Tillman can. Maybe not as in the midfield, the same as Malik Tillman can, but I definitely think that's his kind of role. But yeah, in terms of the goal yesterday, it was just a shocker, wasn't it? The miss, sorry. I mean, I'm going to bring up XG again, so I'm sorry to all the Rangers dads listening. They're probably fed up listening to me, but the XG for that goal is something like 0.7. I mean, it's got to go in. It's got to be a goal.
That's nearly a penalty, isn't it? It's very close to a penalty.
Pretty much, yeah.
I don't understand XG at all, so
it's a high chance. Yeah, it's a bad one. Yeah, choker.
Yeah. So anyway, right, let's move on from that chance. Obviously, there were a couple other chances as we piled on the pressure towards the end, but nothing too clear cut. There was one more save from Joe Hart, but outside of that, I don't think we really troubled him too much. Robert Binney's asking, why not pose the question, is Beale the man for the job? Robert, you're ruining the end of the podcast.
That's the agenda. That's the agenda gone.
Like, that's my question at this stage. Now, I realise we are approaching the hour, but there's plenty to talk about, and we've got two main topics still to cover. The first of those that I want to talk about, and Gus, I don't believe you were in the stadium yesterday, were you?
No, I was at home.
You were at home. So, Ross, I'll come to you first of all. Then I want to talk about the fan reaction at two separate points of the game. First one is the substitution when Kemar Roofe is brought off the park. That's the first time I've seen as vociferous a reaction as that towards the manager over a substitution. Did it catch you by surprise that was how people reacted? And what did you make of that reaction in itself?
It definitely did catch me by surprise. I was with Tommy yesterday covering the game for the podcast, and I was a wee bit confused at the time. I thought maybe there'd been some sort of reaction with a Celtic player on the pitch, or I thought it was like some responding to like the referee in some way. I was a wee bit confused by it. Obviously, I then seen Kemar Roofe run over, spoke to Tommy, and he was obviously like that. I'm pretty certain that's because he's bringing Kemar Roofe off. So yeah, I was surprised at the time by that. I don't think it was, again, if you think of it logically, right, Kemar Roofe, was it around the 60-minute mark, I think? I can't remember the exact time.
It's Michael Beale, so he's going to make a substitution at the 60th minute mark.
Right on the hour, which you would expect, right? Now, if you think of this logically when it comes to Kemar Roofe's fitness, it kind of makes sense for Kemar Roofe to come off of the hour, right? He's not really played a lot of football. He's clearly trying to protect him for domestic games. He obviously sees him as being really important, right? So that part it's not really a surprise if you think about it. I think it just sums up the emotion towards the manager at the moment. I think any player that came off at that point would get some sort of boo or whatever, yeah, you know what I'm trying to say, that there was always going to be that reaction to the game. I think it's an overall problem at the moment. I think Rangers fans are struggling with Michael Beale's substitutions at the moment. They really don't believe that they're going to change the game in the way that they want it to. There's certain times he's bringing off players, and you could sit down, you could have 20 other Rangers fans in the room, and you could ask for everyone's opinion, and no one would have an idea what Michael Beale's trying to do with the substitution. And I think that was kind of what the frustration was yesterday as well. The game's not going very well. You're bringing off a player that we think is actually could make a difference in this game.
Yeah.
You said at the beginning of the podcast or middle of the podcast about Desser's not been as bad as people made out yesterday. I tend to agree. I thought the style didn't really suit him, but I didn't think individually he was terrible. So I felt bad for him as well, because that's obvious that he's thinking, well, are they going to react to that if I go off the park? So yeah, all round it's not great, but look, I can understand the fan reaction. I can completely understand it, because what we were watching was pretty turgid. So that was their opportunity to vent, and they absolutely took it.
Yeah. Before I come to Gus and ask him about the outpouring of rage on social media that followed the game, Ross, the final point in the stadium, I guess, was when the players did some sort of weird lap of the pitch at the end, which I've not seen them do before. Michael Beale was straight down the tunnel. The players then basically circled the centre circle. It was that small a lap of the pitch, but it was a vitriolic, and it was an angry atmosphere at that stage, wasn't it?
Yeah, really poor. I don't know who made that decision yesterday. It couldn't have been Michael Beale, because Michael Beale was down the tunnel as quickly as possible. So it couldn't have been the manager. The manager, unless it's directed before the game, which I think, again, is a bit weird to set that up before the game, that you're going to go around and thank the fans, right? So it must have been a decision from either James Tavernier or Connor Goldson, right, as captain and vice-captain. They've decided to do that yesterday. Again, I don't know why they've came to that decision. They've played in this fixture enough. They understand the reaction of the fans if you don't win in this fixture, and especially in the manner that we lost yesterday. I really don't understand the logic behind it, and I think it made the fans even worse, because the fans were booing at full time. But to see that, the players hanging about in the park, what makes it worse as well is, right, that sounds a bit petty, but Celtic made the most of that yesterday in the park. They got all the players on, they were hugging, they were making the most of it. Brendan Rodgers right in front of the camera, he's hugging John Kennedy, right? They grabbed that moment. They're well entitled to do it. They won the game. And I think the Rangers players staying on around them just made the whole atmosphere toxic. It's just no one wanted to see any of it. And no one wanted to clap those fans off. I think Jack Butland got clapped by the majority of the fans. He was walking around on his own at the end, and a lot of the fans did clap him, because I think a lot of the fans felt he's not really done anything wrong in all of this. He doesn't really contribute to the style of play or whatever we're seeing. So he got a bit of a clap. But yeah, it was really toxic. I think we've all seen the images, and I'm sure there were several newspapers running it yesterday about fans fighting. It really was a terrible atmosphere when it finished yesterday. But you expected it, really. You did expect it, because you could feel the tension in the ground yesterday. I think I spoke about this after Livingston as well. I know we won that game pretty convincingly, but that day as well, you could feel the tension in the ground. Rangers fans have ran out of patience. There's no patience anymore, and that's for the club as a whole, but especially Michael Beale. They're done. They're done waiting on this team to gel and start producing performances. It needs to happen now, or it had to happen yesterday, and they didn't deliver. So that reaction is probably exactly what I expected at the end.
Yeah, Gus, that safe to say that reaction carried over onto social media, and we always put in the caveat that social media is a microcosm of what Rangers fans think, and it's not all Rangers fans, and there's probably the vast majority of Rangers fans are not on social media, but it's always a barometer, I guess, of what a lot of people are thinking. And I don't think much like in the stadium, I don't think I've ever seen a reaction on social media quite as angry as what there was yesterday. No one was safe. No one was safe from the critics on social media yesterday. Were you surprised at the level of it?
In some ways, yeah. I mean, after bad results like that, I kind of tend to stay away from Twitter, because it is very reactionary. I've seen quite a lot of Rangers accounts with the profile picture of Michael Beale with a red cross over his face, which I don't agree with. But yeah, there's a lot of reactionary takes on there. But like in terms of the boos at the end of the game, I think that they were completely justified after seeing that performance. But yeah, I do try to tend to stay away from social media after results like that, and it's probably for the best, I think.
Yeah, I think whatever anyone felt after yesterday's result is entirely justified to feel it, and yeah, it's going to be we're going into a 2-week international break, obviously, which isn't going to help that either. Everyone's frustration is just going to build and build and build. There's no outlet of another game during the week or another game next weekend for a comfortable win that kind of everyone takes stock and all that sort of stuff. It's just going to build and build and build. Gus, before we go on to the big question of whether Michael Beale is the man for the job going forward or not, what do you make of the fact that it appeared as though Michael Beale, and I think we've all learned this about Michael Beale anyway, he goes into a game with a preset strategy of when substitutions are going to be made and what substitutions are going to be made, rather than reacting to what's happening in the game. Ryan Jack yesterday was the perfect example. Probably could have hooked him at half-time and put on a John Lundstrom or someone, or a Cifuentes in there. What do you make of that clear trend that we see from Michael Beale, and how frustrating do you find that, if you find it frustrating at all?
I've not really thought about it too much, to be honest with you, but I do agree that he needs to become more proactive to what's happening in the game. He does sometimes take too long to make the right substitutions, as you said. Yesterday, I mean, there was a few people that could have got taken off earlier. I think Yilmaz should have probably came on earlier as well to give us some more energy, some more attacking dynamic down the left-hand side, because we just weren't getting it from Dujon Sterling. And that's not really through any fault of his own, because he's not really that type of player. But
I thought he had quite a good game yesterday.
Yeah, I thought he was okay. But we really lacked any sort of attacking outlet on the left-hand side. So I thought probably Yilmaz at half-time was a change I would have made. But yeah, I do agree that he needs to become more proactive with his tactical changes and his player changes as to what's happening in the game.
What's your thoughts on that, Ross?
Yeah, I think I definitely agree with that point. I think we've seen with Michael Beale so far that there seems to be there's a bit of a level of stubbornness there, I think, now when it comes to this approach. There's obviously a lot of questions from Rangers fans. The media are actually asking him about it. Like, mainstream media are asking him about it as well now, in terms of how he's approaching games, and it looks a wee bit disjointed and things. And he really seems wedded to it. And he certainly seems attached to it when he's starting games. But I'm with you. It takes too long for him to try and change the momentum of the game. And the earlier you do that, to try and break a team's rhythm, the better. Try and give yourself as enough time, enough opportunity as possible. Now, Michael Beale will sit, and I suppose if you had him part of this conversation, he would argue and say, well, have a look at the Livingston game. We were 1-0. Livingston were starting to make their way back into the game, and I made 2 substitutions in Ravi Matondo and Sima, and we ran away with the game. Well, that's fine, but that's one game. We've not seen it enough. We've seen it against PSV midweek. I know PSV are a good side, but we came back out in the second half. We've done exactly the same thing we done in the first half, and they absolutely battered us, right? And we could all see it coming based on the first half. And I think we've seen it yesterday as well. I think we all felt if he doesn't make a change, then we're not going to win this game. There's not enough evidence that we're seeing that he's going to win it. And I think that shows you where we are as a mentality at the moment. We're all saying these things. Oh, he needs to take this player off. He needs to change this. He needs to move that. But we all know he's not going to do it. So it seems a wee bit, this seems a bit daft to say, but it seems a wee bit redundant moaning about it. And really that just comes down to, do you have the right man? If you're not believing in what he's going to do and you can't buy into it, is he the right person? Which I realise I'm probably jumping across your agenda here. But that's the way I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah, well, that takes us nicely. That's a nice segue onto our concluding discussion on tonight's podcast. We're well over the normal hour, but there's so much to discuss, so many talking points. So I don't think there's any we kind of swithered about, do we ask the question if Michael Beale has lost the fans? I don't think there's any question that he's lost the fans. I put a poll on Twitter after the game yesterday, just asking the simple question: Are you still behind Michael Beale as Rangers manager? There's over 2,400 people voted on it, and 87% said that they weren't, which is an overwhelming amount of Rangers fans, an overwhelming percentage of Rangers fans who say they aren't behind him. That's an incredibly hard thing to overcome, Ross, when that volume of Rangers fans are against you. Can he win over Rangers fans, you think? Is there any way back in the eye of the fans?
There'll definitely be a large set of support they'll never win back now, if I'm honest with you. I wouldn't put myself in that bracket. I'd like to think that Michael Beale can turn this around. Now, I'm maybe being a wee bit naive here, and I'll maybe give you my logic on this, the way I always think. I know the club won't remove him right now based on the summer we've just had, right? So I'm accepting that as a fan. We've seen it with Giovanni Van Bronckhorst last year, right? There was a lot of people not happy even at this stage last year, performances and things like that, right? So I know the club aren't going to remove him at this stage. So that always comes into my thinking whether we get rid of the manager or not. I think for me, I probably wouldn't put myself in the bracket that I don't think he could ever turn it around, but I am certainly lacking belief in this manager, and I think that's a terrible place to be. Like, do I really believe that Michael Beale is going to be the person that takes us to this title this year? I can't say yes now. I can't. I would, if you'd asked me 4 weeks ago, even after Kilmarnock, how bad it was, I would have said, yeah, these things happen. But what I've seen over the last week, I'm really, really struggling to have that belief in the manager now. And I think I said this at the top of the podcast, that's an awful place to be in at the start of September. And if you don't have the backing of the fans, there's only so long it will go on for. Michael Beale won't be a long-term Rangers manager now, right? Simple as that. So even if he was to get to the end of this season and he manages to pull it out of the bag and win us the title, right? Just hypothetically. See if it comes to next season and he has another dip like this, the fans will be right back on him again. There won't be that kind of patience with him. There won't be like, oh, but he's turned it around before. There just will always be a set of fans, or a large majority of the fans, to be fair, that they're finished with him now. And it doesn't matter what he does. It doesn't matter how he responds. So, yeah, I think the best way for me to put it, I don't think at this stage I could say just remove the manager, because I think I know the club aren't going to do that, right? But I am really struggling for belief in him, and it's going to have to take a real uptick in performances for me to get back on board. Like, I'm going to have to see a really different Rangers team after this international break. I'm going to have to see like scintillating football, I think, for me to actually start to buy into him again. I asked Tommy this yesterday, maybe worth asking you both this. The tactical aspect of Michael Beale is what everyone bought into, right? That was what everyone always spoke about before recruiting him as a manager, right? He's inexperienced as a manager, but it was always like, yeah, but what you're getting this tactical innovator, right? He's just way ahead. He can do everything. See if he doesn't have that part, right? What does he have?
Yeah, well,
genuinely, what does he have?
That was going to be my next question. I was going to say, like, signs I've seen from this Rangers team so far: safe and slow passing, no patterns of play, no clear style, not a single full 90-minute performance as yet. Yeah. And we're 9 games in. Players don't look like they know where they should be or when they should be there. We spoke earlier about the compact style that it seemed like we tried to move back into at times, and especially in that first half, we don't have the players to play that style, or they definitely don't look like they know where they should be. It's the same with the press as well. Michael Beale's supposed to be a renowned coach. He's supposed to be admired by big clubs across England. We've seen him at Chelsea. He's seen the same at Liverpool. He's admired in South America as well, and yet he's let our team, our squad, get to this stage where we've got no discernible style, we've got no discernible way of playing, where we've got no creativity around the team. Gus, how does it get to this stage where the fans have not even got a single thing to cling on to, really?
I know that's quite mad, isn't it? But I would say I feel very similarly to Ross about this. It will take a lot for me to get back on board, and I was a massive defender of Michael Beale probably before the PSV game. But yeah, I think it is clear that he's lost the fans, and to get any kind of respect back, he's going to need to go on a near flawless run from now on, and that includes winning the League Cup if he makes it that far. But yeah, he's definitely on thin ice, and I don't think right now, if he was sacked, I don't think I would have any problems with it. But yeah, it's gonna take a lot for me certainly to get back on board, and definitely the same for the majority of Rangers fans.
Yeah, I don't think he will be sacked now. I don't think there's any danger of that happening for exactly the reasons Ross said about how much money was spent in the window building players for his team and for the style of play that he wants to implement. It's concerning in itself, the lack of width that we have in the squad currently, and that's always something that fans are pointing to. But I think, like a few people have said in the comments, and like you both said, even if he goes on a 10-game unbeaten, a 10-game winning run in the SPFL against the other teams, I'm not sure that changes anything. I genuinely don't think that changes anything. He needs to go pretty much unbeaten to the end of the season and win the League Cup, win the league, and that in itself seems very unrealistic considering we've got 6 points from 4 games in the league so far. Ross, you're nodding in agreement there. I assume you're the same. It's we need to win against the rest of the SPFL, but we need to show up and win the big games too.
Yeah, and he needs to, that flawless run. Is he going to actually get to the big games? Because I think I would argue now he's had enough big games to prove himself, hasn't he? Really, and he's not delivered in them. So I think he mentioned it in his press conference yesterday, and I think there's a lot of debate around Michael Beale sometimes how much he says he's maybe a wee bit too open. Actually, I thought this part was quite refreshing. Is the wrong word, but I appreciated his honesty. He said, "This was a big game for me." He said it. He was honest. He said, "This was a big game for me." Like I knew that, I'm not quoting him here, but basically he was saying, I knew I had to win this. I knew that coming into this game. Now, the fact that he's well aware of the pressure around him at this point and he's still not been able to deliver, yeah, that really does concern me, because it's not, as a Rangers manager, this will continue. You are going to have big games all the time. That's what it's all about, being a Rangers manager. You have got to deliver in the big moments. And he's not doing it so far. And there's only I think there's a lot of fans that would argue he's had enough chances now to try and put a marker down, and he's not doing it. And I think what I always compare Michael Beale and Steven Gerrard, probably because they play in similar style. They obviously work together and things like that. And I always find it really interesting at the time when we were thinking about bringing Michael Beale back, and a lot of people were saying, there's Michael Beale's he's the brains behind Steven Gerrard, and I used to always say that is not how it would work here. No way. He might be helping him as a coach and helping him tactically, but he won't be the brains. But I think a lot of people really bought into Steven Gerrard outside of the tactical stuff. Like the way he spoke, the way he came across, you knew how he was with the players. Maybe him being the footballer he was as well helped, right? But I don't think we have that with Beale. The tactical side is everything we've bought into. And he's not giving us that. So until that comes back, I'm not convinced it's going to come back, because at this stage, I think he's had enough time. So I think he's, like Gus said, it's going to take a real turnaround. Like you said yourself, he's going to have to go on a flawless run. And with the evidence we've seen so far, is he capable of doing that? Is he capable of preparing a Rangers team to go on a flawless run? I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so at this stage either, Gus. 4 points behind Celtic after 4 league games. What's the way forward from this? We've got 34 league games to go. I don't think there's any danger that Celtic won't drop more points for the rest of the season. The danger is that we also drop points. And like we've said, we need that flawless run if we're going to have any chance of overcoming that gap. We've still got 3 games against them as well. There's plenty of this season to go. How confident or unconfident are you that Rangers can turn this around and start to play like a team that we expect and hope that Rangers would play like?
Well, it looks a bit bleak, doesn't it, after 4 league games, and we're saying stuff like this. But if we are to persist with Michael Beale, then he's got an international break to figure out his ideas and come up with a distinct style of play and stick to it. I think that's what he's got to do. Stick with the same players as well, so they get used to the roles and they're not interchanging between different positions. I said earlier that he always prides his team selection and the players that he's brought in on being able to play multiple positions, being unpredictable, but there's nothing to be unpredictable from in the first place. So if we get that distinct style of play first and then start to implement his ideas, we could maybe claw something back. But yeah, it is, after 4 league games, looking a bit bleak.
I think that's probably the understatement of the year.
Yeah, definitely is.
Ross, where do you stand on what's the way forward? We've got the time, we've got the opportunities to turn it around if we can. What's the way forward?
Yeah, I feel like I might be repeating Gus a wee bit here, so I apologise, but I think he's spot on. I think he really has to narrow down now what he thinks his best 11 is, and he needs to play them in consecutive games. And I mean that in terms of, I understand that there's a different approach to a game when it comes to domestic football and European football, and sometimes that does hinder us, right? We have to play very differently in SPFL fixtures than we do in European football. It's a much more game. You can be more expansive. I get it, right? But really, he's going to have to stick with a team in both, I think. I think he's just going to have to pick an 11 and a relative style of play that he wants in SPFL games, and he's going to have to use the same one in Europe, because he needs to give this team a run. He needs to let these players get used to his style and start to adapt to the way he's playing. I can't believe I'm still saying that in September, but that's what he needs. He'll come out and maybe say that, we have to rotate, we have to protect the players. Wrap that now, right? Let's just focus on trying to get performances out of this team. See, once you then get it and you start to build the confidence again, start bringing people in and out. The fans will back that. They'll understand it, right? If you start chopping and changing at that point. But now people are sick of it. We just want to see a bit of consistency. We want to see the team start to adapt to each other, start to get used to each other. We're not seeing enough of that so far. So pick an 11 or pick a 13 or 14, I suppose. Maybe it's a wee bit unrealistic to always think it's an 11. But pick a set number of players and stick with them. And they're going to play the next 3 or 4 fixtures when you come back from the break. And then we'll see where we lie. I think that's his only option, honestly. Because I think if he keeps doing what he's doing and he's tinkering at every single game, it's only going to end one way, I think.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree with that one. And just to round us off, William White need to play the best 11 in their own positions and start with that. I think that's the best summary of the way forward and the best summary of what both Ross and Gus have said. We're well over our normal hour. There's been plenty to discuss. We could continue for another hour and a half if we really wanted to, but it is near enough 10:30 at night at this stage. So just want to say thank you very much to Ross and Gus for joining us, and thank you very much to everyone for listening. If you've enjoyed tonight's podcast, please do like the video and leave us a comment. It does really help us in terms of boosting the podcast and helping more people find us on YouTube. If you have enjoyed the content, please do subscribe to the TII YouTube channel and toggle on those notifications so you get a wee email or an alert every single time we go live or we schedule to go live. In terms of what's coming up, we are just entering a 2-week international break, so a slightly reduced schedule from normal. Ross can't wait for all the Scotland games. That's
no. Sorry, I'm just celebrating not watching Rangers for 2 weeks. I'm sure we can all enjoy that at the moment the way we are playing. Yeah, just 2 weeks off from them. That's great.
So we're slightly reduced schedule, but we'll have some really good content. We've got an interview with Thomas Gronemark coming up later this week, who some of you might recognise as the throw-in expert from Liverpool, which it remains a very topical discussion in Rangers games when James Tavernier goes to take every possible set piece going. But we will still have content over the next couple of weeks, so make sure you tune in to that. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. Hope you've enjoyed it, and until next time, goodbye.